wave, step to the side when we coming. Feel it in your chest, the syllables get pumping. People on the street get panic and start running. Words on loose leaf sheet, complete coming. I jump on my mind, I summon the rhyme, I'm dumping. Healing the blind, I promise to let the sun in. Sick of the dark ways, we march to the drumming. Jump when they tell us that they want to see jumping. Dad, I want to see some fist pumping. Lift something, take back what's yours. Say something that you know they might attack you for. Cause I'm sick of being treated like I have before. Like a stupid standing for what I'm standing for. Like this war's really just a different brand of war. Like it doesn't cater to rich.
Y'all, let's get it going, y'all. That's what I dumped in the chat room. My name's Charlie McGrath. This is Wide Awake Radio. It is the 25th of January, Tuesday. If you are listening and not in the chat room, we have about 70 folks in there right now. You can go to wideawakenews.com, click on Wide Awake Radio link, and it'll take you right into the chat room. I'm excited for tonight's show. This show should have happened on Friday, but because of technical difficulties, it could not. We're going to have Pat, also known as Blue Cat, from the chat room. A very interesting lady, and her and I had a conversation just minutes before the program, and I got some insight to her deal there in Chicago and what she does for a living, and it's very interesting. So not only are we going to talk about prep tonight, we're going to take a stab at some alternative forms of commerce or maybe I should say alternative forms of making a living in an ever-declining economy. So it's going to be an interesting show. If you're listening, go to the chat room. There's going to be a lot of good back and forth on prep, on ideas for prep, on ideas for jobs in this new economy. So get over to wideawakenews.com, click on Wide Awake Radio, get into the chat, and join the program. Also, Bonnie is doing a stellar job maintaining the Facebook. If you want to follow this program or Krabby Dog Tricks on YouTube, if you want to follow those, you can follow them on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/wideawakeradio, Wide Awake News, and you can follow the program, see who's going to be the guest, and the current videos. Okay, big night tonight. We're gonna talk prep. We're gonna talk positive things, but not before I talk about what's happening in the news a little bit. I dumped a couple stories into the chat room right as the show was starting. The first one is talking about the State of the Union that we can expect tonight, and what we're going to hear, and it's going to be economy. We're going to have the spokesman in chief go out there and sell the American people on the idea that he's done a good job in fixing our economy. Before I say one more word, I want to say that I do not blame the unemployment rate on our president or this administration. I no more than I do on the Bush administration, no more than I do on the Clinton, Bush, Reagan, you name it, no more than I blame it on the last 40 years of corporatocracy. They're all one and the same. It's not Obama's fault any more than it is any of the other puppets of Wall Street. But he's going to go out there and he's going to tell you that the programs he has spent trillions of our dollars on has worked, and what he wants to do in the future, more money that he wants to spend in backdoor bailouts and hidden bailouts and more corporate stimulus to keep the banksters fat and happy. And if you really want to know the State of the Union, don't bother tuning into the Spokesman's in Chief's State of the Union address. If you really want to know the state of the union that we are in right now, you got to go over to Switzerland, because in Davos, if you want to know the state, the true what State of the Union they care about, our leaders in Washington, they care about the state of the bankers in this union, in this so-called republic. And a headline I also dumped into chat is from Bloomberg: Wall Street's partying in Davos as banker overcome crisis. And here's the deal. The system is not only broke, the system is guaranteed rigged for these criminals to be over partying in Davos, Switzerland. J.P. Morgan, highest profit ever last year. Highest profit ever in the history of J.P. Morgan. I want to say it over and over again because we are experiencing depression-like economic data coming out daily in this country. We're worse than the Great Depression on the housing industry. We truly have an unemployment rate, if we judge it by the same metric they used in the Great Depression. We're there. We're there in a Great Depression. This is masterful propaganda that we have going on. We're going to have the spokesman-in-chief come out and say things are getting better, unemployment numbers are coming down, the economy is going to grow at a 1, 2, 3, 4% pace. And people are going to lap this up. The only people not lapping it up are the millions and millions and millions of people who are on emergency unemployment benefits, or the scores of millions of people who are on food stamps, or the over a million that will lose their home and be kicked out into the streets this year. But while this all happens, while this is rolling on primetime TV, and we have a bunch of pundits, a bunch of scumbag so-called journalists telling us that everything's better because the spokesman-in-chief is telling us everything is better, while this is rolling, over across the pond in Switzerland, we have the true power elite, and they are living high on the hog. Their economy is fixed. It is glory days for them. And they're spending more money this year, record spending in Davos on the parties, on the grease in the skids, so these banksters can get together and once again strategize the financial downfall of the world. And you know, even in this article that I mentioned to, I alluded to, there's a I'm going to drop it back into the chat room in a minute, but there's snippets in there where these guys are basically bragging to the fact that here they are 2 years after the worst economic collapse in the history of the planet, and they still don't have governments. Governments so far have opted against breaking up or levying extra taxes on banks too big to fail. And the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, which set global financial regulatory guidelines, isn't requiring lending to meet new capital standards until 2015. These people are sitting over there laughing at us. You know, they're laughing at the fact that they cannot fail. No matter what they do, they can't fail. We're failing miserably here. You know, on the street, on Main Street, we're falling apart. But they're over there laughing at the idea that here they are, 2 years after the worst collapse in the history of the planet. They've thrown all their debt onto the public, and they're enjoying the fact that governments just don't have the stomach to break up the too big to fail, or to even have the too big to fail set aside more capital when their criminal enterprises fall apart again, because it is coming again, and we will be asked to pay for it again. Well, in fact, scratch that. We won't be asked. We weren't asked in the last one. We won't be asked in the next one. So if you want to know the state of our economy, it's in dire straits on the ground, on Main Street. You're going to have a spokesman tell you everything's fine, and you're going to have pundits like over at Bloomberg write articles saying, you know, everything's fine because they're spending $50 million on parties this year instead of the pittance of $20 million they did last year. Ladies and gentlemen, the state of our economy is desperation. And there's no more reason other than that than having the kind of show we're having tonight. You know, while we have a bunch of pundits in D.C. and a bunch of paid spokesmen on the mainstream media telling us everything's better, we're going to look at reality and realize that tough times are coming to this country, and we need to prep on our own. We need to take care of ourselves, our neighbors, our friends, our family, and our loved ones, because we're going to be lied to all the way until the edge of that cliff and the bus goes off. So we need to start taking care of ourselves, taking care of our own, because you know, they pay lip service to caring about the people of this country, but in reality, history itself, not Charlie McGrath, not Wide Awake Radio, WideAwakeNews.com, not anybody in the alternative media, you know, we're not trying to tell you what the truth is. We're asking you to look at history and look over at Davos and see who's getting taken care of. It isn't America. It isn't Main Street. It isn't the citizens of this world. It's the fat Wall Street banksters and their brethren in the central banking clans around the world. Those are the guys being taken care of. So we're going to continue to do our monthly or bi-monthly shows on how you can take care of yourself and how you can potentially earn a living, eke out an existence in what left of the economy we have. All right, that's enough of that. I want to introduce and bring on our very own Pat, also known as Blue Cat from the chat room, and welcome to the show, and thank her for coming on and talking prep tonight. Pat, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. You sound great.
Good, thanks. Thanks. It's
Welcome to the
interesting
show.
you were talking about Switzerland because my heritage is part Swiss, and I'm kind of like, I'm going to be the anti-Davos for tonight. So we're going to do, I guess, a point-counterpoint, huh?
Yeah, we need some anti-Davos news. You know, the fact is they don't have to prep because their futures are, they're set in gold. It's in gold leaf. So, we do have to be concerned about it. And, and I'm glad I have you on. And in talking to you before the show, I alluded to this a second ago. I want to talk first. We've got about 10 or 12 minutes. I would like to talk before the break. I would like to talk about the business you're in and how it fits in this, this horrible economy. So why don't you start off by telling me, what you do for your day job and how it fits in a declining economy.
Okay. Everyone can go ahead, and if you want to go to, I'm putting it up in the room, cloversgardencenter.com. And what happens is, if you want to take a look at that and look at our website, it's actually we built it up over the years to be a good tool. We're one of the only garden centers that basically ascribes to the concept of peak oil and works quite a bit to tell people about gardening as something that they can do to prep and to supplement their their fruit, their vegetables, their larder. It's an interesting business that we're in because, things have changed over the last several years. Before it was just basically dealing with ornamental horticulture, but now the industry is beginning to see, because of the economy, that we have to place more emphasis as growers and also nurserymen and what else to people that want to relearn the techniques of growing their own food. And it's not just vegetable gardening, it's also fruit, it's also mini orchards in the city. It's, instead of planting, say, like if you wanted to plant a hedge along your fence line in your property, maybe not planting evergreens, but planting, blueberries to, try and supplement your, what you're doing. So we're kind of in the forefront of trying to educate people about that. We've been open as a business since the early 90s, I would say 93, 94. I've been with the company since 97, and I've opened up several of their stores in several locations. We have, the last year we had 15 locations open up, and our companies run a little bit differently than other garden centers. You'll have sometimes some, garden centers that are family run, but they'll have one big location and they make it into like almost a home lifestyle center. And some of them have gotten really fancy over the years. And there's a room for that, but the point is that we just are kind of smaller. We fit into the neighborhood insofar as sometimes we'll set up shop in different like little parking lots and little strip malls and that sort of thing. And, just little shopping areas. Sometimes we pair up with greengrocers. And what we do is that we work together because way back in the day, maybe in the 60s and the 70s, you had the concept, that's where, your mom and dad used to go and buy their geraniums, their tomato plants, and their petunias and that sort of thing. And that's what how people used to shop. Mm-hmm. But now it's gotten to the point where you go to your big places and you spend a lot of money, and we just want to make it quick, easy in, easy out. So it's kind of almost like having a small shop, and what I like to say, it's almost like Cheers. The old TV program when you go in and everybody mm-hmm. knows your name. That's kind of how it is. So what happens is that we get a lot of people that I would say are ethnic in consideration. They are looking for something different and unusual, and we specialize in that. We have had our growers grow a lot of different things over the years to kind of accommodate a different ethnic, different ethnic groups in Chicago. There's a lot of people coming in from India, the Middle East, different places from South America, a lot of Filipino folk and Asians, and there's tons of different vegetable varieties that we didn't know about before, and they're in the ethnic palate because obviously if you're growing vegetables, why would you're wanting to eat them. So we had to learn about them, and we, got some of our growers to start investigating different seed varieties and different heirlooms, and it's made the marketplace even better. So this is something that has come about because of that.
Yeah, and we were talking before. I like the idea that you guys are coming in, setting up shop in the season. I'm in Montana. You're in Chicago. We both have very short growing seasons.
Exactly.
But you're not. You're setting up a business that requires not a lot of overhead and not for the entire year.
Right.
And then you're marketing it to niche communities.
Right.
Like
the niche communities. Yeah. I mean, it's for everybody, but. A lot of the people that we work with are also, like I said, it's about, I would say, a good 2/3 are regular, your American gardeners, and then you have a good third that is probably, the new diaspora, the new foreign market that has come in, and they're new Americans, or maybe they're living here now, and they have to learn about this climate. They have to learn about stuff. So to plant, what do I plant? What do I do? How do I prepare my ground? So we have to teach them all of that. And so if you look at our website and you make that as a link, it's not going to help everybody across the United States on this radio program, but at least it's a good enough site to see where you're living at. If you look to websites that are set up like that, you'll know that you're going to a good garden center, because there'll be a lot.
Do me a favor, Pat. We're 2-minute delay between you and I talking and where the audience hears it. So drop that link in there again, because you did it the first time, and then they heard us talking about it 2 minutes later. But the chat room's pretty full, so it was scrolled up quite a way. So dump that in there again, if you will. I like the idea that you could probably apply this business model, and I promise, guys, after the break we're going to get into prepping in an urban environment. But I like the idea of this business model where you're small, you're nimble, you're able to come in, set up, and then if unfortunately there's going to be areas that decline to where it can't sustain that business, but you don't have all the baggage that you would with having a regular brick-and-mortar garden center. You're able to get in and get out. But you could apply this model to a lot of different types of business. I don't care if it's, auto repair or, air conditioning, electrician. Any kind of business could use this kind of a model to be smaller, nimbler, and able to service a niche-type community. Exactly.
And there's a trade group that we go to. It's it shows we go to a lot of trade shows in the off season, which is now, and there's one in February, the ANLA, American Nursery and Landscapers Association, and it's also it's our main lobbying group in Washington, because we are a multi-billion-dollar industry. I mean, nursery industries employ a lot of people all across the United States. So the point is that they are, we've had to actually teach some of the people in ANLA that this is a good thing to do, and even if you have your one all-around store that you're dealing with all the time, it's good to have something. You could have your store and have other satellite stores set up in your community. There's no reason why you couldn't have both. So it's just a way to kind of reach out to your community and to teach them that you're here, that you're there to help them garden, and also it's a good way for people to make money, to employ. Over the years I've employed so many kids, and they've come back, to say hi, and they come back with their kids and their young families, and it's nice to see that. So It really builds. Gardening is one thing that really builds communities. It really does,
I agree.
And that's why I love this industry so much.
Well, and in talking to you today, we spoke to the fact that your main goal in tuning into shows like this and participating in programs like this and alternative media isn't, you're not coming here to throw out a website. You're coming here because you want to teach people and help people survive, because
Exactly.
Your community sees it. The people you work with, that you manage these facilities, but your bosses, they understand where the economy's heading and why this is so important.
Well, yeah, we talked about that. He didn't, he thought I was kind of nuts, like several years ago. But it was interesting because my husband and I were both very much involved in the peak oil community. And what happened is that, we kind of got a lot of the meetup groups started back in 2005 here in Chicago, and they've morphed into other things because you can only talk about it for so long until you have to start doing something. And then online, a lot of those peak oil communities, you started having things called transition towns, and you started having community gardens and the activation towards that. And it's multi-pronged reasosoning why you're going to have things of that nature. But when the gas prices started going up, when you started hearing about year after year, people were getting sick on just bad lettuce and spinach. That's when people started saying that well, we better do something about this. And the days of the 3,000, Caesar salads are over, are going to be over
I agree.
Before you know
Hold on one sec, Blue. Hold on one sec. We got to take this break. It's our only break of the show. When we come back, we're going to talk winter gardening. We're going to talk prep in an urban environment. The last half hour, callers welcome. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Wide Awake Radio. I'm Charlie McGrath, your host. My website's wideawakenews.com. Our subject tonight was prep, but we did the first half with in more of alternative business models, and that's my fault. If I know there's some people in this chat room saying let's get into some prep, but I think it's very important, what they're doing with their business model, because we need answers like that. I mean, as much as we need preparation, we need to have some sort of idea how we're going to move forward in a lagging and dying economy, and ideas like when I talked to Pat off air, the idea of how they're modeling their business is intriguing to me because they're making it work in an area that is one of the hardest hit in the nation. So that's why we spent so much time covering that. I thought it was important and interesting, and frankly, it is important, and to me, it's interesting. So we went down that path. But now, the last half of the show, we are going to talk prep, especially in your area, urban area, and in these northern climates. So let me start out, Pat, just by asking you, let's do the urban prep angle on this first.
Okay.
What can I do? What can I do through the winter and even in the summer? Maybe if I'm in a high rise or if I'm in a built up urban area and I don't have an acre of land or a quarter acre of land that I can plant in. How can
Actually,
I
believe it or not, in the industry now, we've ascertained that most 60%, a good 60 to 65% of vegetable gardens are going in pots and containers, not in the ground, in pots and containers. And so this speaks to us that there's a big urban outreach insofar as people trying to do something, trying to learn, but to try and do it in a limited area, maybe on the back stoop, on a rooftop garden, and that is something that is, of course, really big in Chicago here, the rooftop gardens. We're lucky we have a very green mayor. I mean, I've got my problems with Daley, but the thing is that for one thing you have to say about him is he is a very green mayor, and he did bring a lot of the green rooftop concept to Chicago, and it's really sprung out like crazy. If you want to see an interesting restaurant that is now a certified farm in the city, uncommongrounds.com. And I'll put that up on the, just think of coffee grounds on
Common Ground, okay.
grounds.com, and you could go to their website and you could see whatever they grow. They're two different locations. They are growing a lot of their vegetables that are going right downstairs into the kitchen. You can't get any fresher than that. They have their own beehives for pollination. They don't really use it so much for the honey, but they use it for pollination, and they also have their own chickens. So this is right upstairs on the rooftop. So this is how rabid people are getting. A lot of gardens. This started, of course, the concept of having a garden started back in World War II with the Victory Gardens. And Chicago led the way. They were tops in the nation with over 170,000 private gardens. And this was something that's amazing. So we just basically took up where we left off, and we are taking over a lot of plots that are empty in the city. There's something in the government that we can, it kind of makes it easier now for us to go through the courts to obtain plots of land, ownership of plots of land, insofar as a community-supported agriculture, or whether it's just a community, or whether it's just a private thing like a church community, to be able to get a plot of land to be able to get it for, purposes of gardening and for community gardening.
Sure.
Nowadays. So that kind of helps things along. Insofar as let's see.
I was
talking
thinking
about. Pardon?
No, I like the idea of the restaurant, and I think in some ways that's just kind of chic. They're growing their vegetables, and they're raising poultry on site. But I guess what I'd like to get your take on is let's say you're
what do you do
struggling
now insofar as winter time is concerned?
Is winter time, and also how about if you're in an apartment and maybe you just have a stoop, or maybe you just have a patio, you're talking about containers a second ago. How can I start a garden, indoors perhaps, and then to move it out in the spring?
Okay.
How can I grow in a very limited space?
Well, you can, what you could do now is what the gardeners are going to be doing now, they're going to be looking at seed catalogs. And they're going to be, obviously we're talking about everybody in the whole United States here, so you'll be getting seeds for your area. And you'll be, planting them in your little jiffy pots and whatnot, and your grow lights and that whole thing. I would suggest, starting, in my area here, we're going to be starting some things actually rather soon, probably in February. You're going to be holding off on putting it in pots per se because the plants are too little. You're going to always hold aside certain things that are going to want to be put into the ground, like just directly sown into the ground, like say radish seeds, for instance, or corn, for instance. That needs to have warm soil, and that needs to, some seeds don't like to be transplanted. If you get yourself a good basic garden book, I would suggest The Garden Primer by Barbara Damrosch, Damrosch. And she's very, very good. It's a very good basic book. It's a nice thick book for people. It's readily available. I think it just went its 30th year printing, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a good, very basic one to understand. And, she'll give you information for different areas. Insofar as winter harvest, people are doing winter gardening right now. You don't have to wait necessarily. Well, you do now because it should have gone in November, but you could do early season or cool season extensions on crops. Some people have put in gardens, say in November. That's probably about the last time to start something up. And what happens in this zone, say zone 5, for instance. And what you have to do is you're gardening with either a poly tent or some kind of cold frame. And what that is it's like a little thing with like a plastic coverlet, and what that'll do is it'll kind of lock out some of the snow. And the only thing that we're using are brassicas, and maybe brassicas are in the kale family. You're using crops. Mizunas is another one that you can use. These are cold season plants that are suited for the, brutal weather, but they just need a little bit of a buffer. And what happens is that when you have them with a little bit of a polytent application, you can grow and harvest even now outside.
Well, I don't know about here. What's the temperature there right now? Are you still
first
able
of all,
to tint?
let me tell you, there's several books by an author named Elliot Coleman, and he has a truck farm, and he's selling vegetables now off of his farm in Maine that he is growing in the ground, a lot of root vegetables. He's got a little bit more of an elaborate system. He's got greenhouses on wheels that he uses, and he just goes over different areas and plots of land so he doesn't overextend the needs of the soil.
Mm-hmm.
But what he does is that he's written a book called the Winter Harvest Handbook, and he has another book, the Four Season Handbook. So you can learn how to do winter harvesting. A lot of people that are some of the community-supported agriculture folks that come to our farmers markets, they're gardening right now up in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I know there is, and I want to get into like crate gardening, completely indoor, completely contained. You just have
you
access
could do
to sunlight.
that too. You could do that either in soil or you could do that with hydroponic systems.
Yeah, hold that thought for a second, because David from Oregon has been holding a long time. I want to get into that, into complete interior, your complete in-home garden, and maybe hydroponics as well. But let's go to Dave, who's been holding for a little bit. Dave from Oregon, thanks. I appreciate your call.
Hey, Charlie. I just got kind of in the middle of this, so I've heard a little bit about what your guest was saying. I wanted to add just one thing. I think that as we are heading into GD2, Great Depression 2, we need to basically network with people of like-minded, and try to do everything by ourselves is not going to be the way to survive GD2. And
I agree.
The kind of community model, local model, working with families and friends, at the local level is the way to go. And I just want to make a plug for an organization called Growing Power out of Milwaukee. The guy's name is Will Allen, and he has pioneered this system of
He's a friend of mine.
Growing food. What's that?
He's a friend of mine.
She said that's a friend of hers. She knows him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if you. Like I said, I just got in the middle of this, and
his daughter's here in Chicago.
Yeah. I mean, the guy has pioneered a way to make food on 3 acres, growing like 1 million pounds of food, 10,000 fishes, 500 yards of compost on this little tiny 3 acres. So it could be done anywhere in the United States, so long as you got people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and learn and get dirty, as it were, and make it happen. So I just wanted to say that and put it on.
That's great advice, and I agree with you. And I know as far as the networking goes, I could not agree with you more. I think that in every level, and that's why you'll see guys like me and Doug Owen and Christopher Green, and guys in alternative media, we are going to start networking and try to get consolidated voice in alternative media. But it's just as important that we do the same thing when it comes to our day-to-day subsistence living, and that's what we're talking about. Why don't you give us that name again, David, real quick, and then we'll get into interior food preparation, interior gardens. Go ahead.
Yeah, Will Allen is the guy who has it. His website is growingpower.org. That's growingpower.org. And before I go, I do also want to mention one other thing. Small-scale alcohol production at the local level, when you can couple it with greenhouses for aquaponics and hydroponics, is actually also the other way to go. Because if you can grow energy at the local level, not only will you have food self-sufficiency, but you're going to be able to power your cars. You can have alcohol
Yep.
stoves. You can have alcohol heaters, alcohol refrigerators.
Yep.
I mean, you can even generate electricity from alcohol. And you don't have to do it the monoculture way that big agriculture companies do it in the United States with corn or in Brazil with sugarcane. You can actually grow a lot of feedstocks where you are and make alcohol at the same time as you're making use the CO2 to grow the plants with, and it's a wonderful system. That's
yeah, and I
well.
agree, and that's great advice, and we need to get to a more localized economy like that, where we're moving farms instead of in closer to the city. So when food is produced, it doesn't have to travel 1,500 miles before it hits an area that can consume it. And I think that idea of having a self-sustaining community, that's lost, and we're going to have to get back to that, especially in the years ahead. So, David, I greatly appreciate your call. I appreciate your insight. Blue, do you want to comment on the gentleman he mentioned?
Well, I would just like to say that when you grow your food, it's also making a political statement, and it's also making an economic statement, obviously, you're going to see in your bank book, but it's also making a political statement, and it's saying that you're freeing yourself from what other people would like you to, just basically have, stuff down your throat. If they're going to, if somebody's going to say, well, we don't have anything, in the shelves today in the store, you're kind of like at the peril of living under a system that is either going to provide you with something or it's not going to provide you with something. And you're going to have to basically say to yourself, if I want to live, if I want to survive, I better learn how to grow my own food. This was something that we did not have to even tell our ancestors. This was something that we all grew up with. And this was something that is basically, didn't Jefferson say he wanted a nation of farmers?
Farmers.
Yeah. So where do we, this whole mechanization of farming, the whole mechanization of food has been something that's, I think, been ruinous on, our systems. It's been ruinous for animals that have to live under, the type of agricultural systems that we have now for them, and it's not healthy.
No, I agree 100%. And when we have no control over the basic our basic needs and what could be more basic than food, then we truly are a nation of servants. If we don't know how to do it ourselves and we can't take care of ourselves, then we need somebody to take care of us. And that's the situation we're in, and it's a situation that's been as far as the big farm lobby goes, it's been legislated into law, that would take up a whole other show talking about what's coming down the road as far as what's the legal ramification of having your own garden or producing your own food.
Because that's something that we're looking at as an industry. So it's I really don't think that that's going to be. That's going to hurt a multi-billion-dollar industry. I don't think, there's going to be a little bit more of an outcry than you think there's going to be. But,
absolutely. Well, let me say I agree with that. If it starts digging into the pockets of the corporatocracy, then there will be ramifications of it. I personally feel that we're heading to a point of a breakdown of sorts, and not unlike what we saw in the Soviet Union, where we need to rely on ourselves, and there'll be too much confusion and perhaps chaos to worry about what big farm industry is doing.
Well, you're not going to have everyone is afraid that they're thinking that the local cop is going to be telling on them, is going to be arresting them. There's not going to be any cops that are going to be on a payroll anymore because there's going to be no payroll to fund anything. Exactly. So I don't understand where, some people are kind of scared, but I think it's just, I think in the long run it's going to be a tempest in a teacup. I think it's going to be more of a situation. If you can keep a community well fed and happy, and you can keep them healthy, and where you're going to have food, you're not going to have riots, because people will riot when there's no food. We just saw this in Tunisia.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at the control mechanism that food is. You know, if
Trotsky said, food is the currency of all currencies. Period.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you need to eat something. Or
you're not going to see your children starve. I mean, even at the end of the day, when you have your gold and silver, I mean, it's nice to have that, but you're going to need food because you can't eat your gold and silver. You have to. I mean, it's still important to have your seeds. It's important to have, knowledge of how to grow things. It's important to have garden tools. It's important to have, some land to grow something in, or to at least have the knowledge of how to grow things in containers, and to take them inside, and it's just basically prepping yourself and giving yourself the knowledge that our ancestors had. But when I used to give peak oil talks back in 05 and 06, a lot of the 20 and 30-year-olds looked like, you just basically hit them on the head with a hammer. It's like, oh my gosh. But the point is that what I used to tell them is, listen, we got through this before, and you're going to learn another skill set, and we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not only that, we're going to get through this well. We're going to be able to eat well. We're going to be able to explore each other's cultures. We're going to, what more fun is there than time spent in a garden?
Well, it's definitely a bonding experience. I've had over the last couple of years been putting in a garden and just going out there and growing your own food, and the time you spend with my son or other family members tending to the garden. That's a bonus that I didn't even know existed, because we just didn't do that when we were kids. But it wasn't too many years ago. But that's how you grew it, you canned it. That's what you ate during the winter.
That's exactly how I grew up, and it's just something that it's a skill set that you learn, and it's a skill set that you need to do, and it's something that's going to make you more independent, and it's going to make you. It's a frugal thing, but it's something that is nutritious and it's wholesome.
Right, and it's something that's hard work that pays off, and there's something in that in going out and doing some actual hard physical labor and having it pay off that you can see. And it puts you in line with your ancestors and your heritage, and it gives you a good insight into how they lived, and what. Not only that, but what it took to bring an heirloom seed from hundreds of years ago where it can get grown today. That's something, that's interesting too, how people save things. And they saved it for you. They saved it for all of the descendants that they had, so that you could keep going on, so that you could feed your child. Yeah, and it's funny, and we're way off topic. I wanted to get into, hey Pat, tell me how to get a container and grow some vegetables in my apartment. But of course, as the show does sometimes, we went off on a little bit of a tangent. But the history of it is fascinating to me as well. And in fact, I want to tell a quick story. I was having a conversation with my brother just last week. And he has a job that he's in a cubicle making widgets. I tease him, he's stamping a form, and he's young. He's in his mid-20s, and one of his coworkers is in her later 50s, and he having a conversation with her like, well, what's the point? It never ends. It's almost kind of like a mail job. It's always coming, and what is the point of this? And, she has the same opinion, but she's done it for 30 years. She's got trapped into the lifestyle, bought things with that job. And he even admitted to me, that he would gladly give up that kind of job that, you know, that looks good because it pays well, to have something where he was part of a community and what he did really, really mattered. You know, maybe he was the one, he was a carpenter in a community and he was the one, you know, building the tables and chairs or putting roofs over people's heads, and that mattered. Or he was the, you know, in your situation, you're growing food, and what on earth could, you know, besides raising children, what on earth could be as important as that and growing food? But it gives you a sense of worth that seems to be lost. Our sense of worth has been turned into a 30-second commercial spot where we can get the latest iPod or iPad or whatever, rather than getting connected again with family, with loved ones, with the earth, with our heritage, with our history, and what it takes to actually make life, create life, and sustain life.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that gives you hope. It's something that gives you a sense of peace and a sense of community and a sense of self-worth. There's so many things that you'll find out that gardening has done for you and has done for the community around you. And if everyone could get feeling like that, that's a positive message to have. That's what we need, a sense of community and a sense of citizen community activists who are gardening are going to be the ones that are going to, like, keep people alive. They're going to be the ones that are going to help refocus this nation on its heritage of democracy, of being a republic. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting what you think of when you're in a garden. Sometimes it's the last thing you're thinking of is the plant.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I do. If I'm repairing my roof or doing a building project with somebody, you know, the biggest challenges of your life can be figured when your hands are kept busy with good manual labor, especially when it's beneficial to yourself or someone. Exactly.
Well, so, is there anything I could talk about a lot of different subject matters, and I have talked about a lot of different subject matters, and I hope that, you know, in the future that if I have a chance to, you know, if you want me to come back, I could talk about tons of different subject matters, because I've taught at several community colleges, horticulture, and it's, you know, it's just something that a garden is never finished. Right. Never finished. So this dialogue that we have together, Charlie, is not finished.
No, I agree, and it's a overwhelming subject. You know, we found that out when we had Sea Gypsy on a few weeks ago. That it's you know, you could just take one aspect of it and do hours and hours and hours of show. I think we did Blue. I think we did a good job of an overview tonight of what it would take in an urban environment, the community getting together and utilizing land available. I definitely will have you back on, and we'll segment it down a little bit more personal. Maybe we'll do a whole segment on growing in a very limited space. I'm talking an 800 square foot apartment with a 40 square foot patio. We'll definitely get you back on. Thanks everybody who joined in tonight and participated in the chat room. I greatly appreciate your patronage to the program. Please stay tuned. Jeff Rintz is coming up next. We'll see you guys tomorrow night at the same time. Have a good night. Rich wage war, it's the poor who die. Meanwhile, the leader just talks away, stuttering and mumbling for nightly news to play. The rest of the world watching at the end of the day, both scared and angry, like, what did he say?